You lied to me, Mom, Caleb shouted, his voice cracking so loud that the glass on the kitchen table rattled. Angela froze with the dish towel still in her wet hands, water dripping onto the floor as she stared at her 17-year-old son. For a second she looked like she was trying to breathe underwater, her chest tight, her eyes wide, her lips moving but no sound coming out. Caleb, she whispered at last, please, not tonight. I am so tired. Her dark hair had more gray in it than last year, and there were shadows under her eyes from all the late-night shifts at the diner. But right now, he did not care about any of that. You always say that, he shot back, the words shaking. Every time I ask about my dad, you shut down. Everyone else at school knows their dad. Even the kids who don't like theirs at least know his name. Why am I the only one who doesn't know where he is, or who he is, or anything? He slammed his hand on the table so hard that the cheap salt shaker tipped to the side. I told you, she said, looking at the table instead of him. He is gone. That is all. Gone is not an answer, Caleb said. His chest hurt, like someone was pushing a fist into his ribs. Is he dead? In jail? Did he just walk out on us? Am I some big mistake you want to forget? Her head snapped up fast at that, and for the first time that night there was fire in her eyes. You are not a mistake, she said, each word slow and sharp. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Do not say that again. Then tell me the truth, he said, softer now, his anger crumbling into fear. Please, I'm almost 18. I deserve to know who I am. Angela opened her mouth, closed it, then pressed her fingers to her temple like her head hurt. One day, she whispered, when I am ready. She turned away to the sink, and that was when her hand slipped on the wet floor. Caleb watched in horror as she fell, hitting the tile with a sickening thud, her head snapping back. Her eyes rolled, and then she was still, the dish towel lying in a small wet circle by her open hand. Mom, he screamed, dropping to his knees beside her. Her eyelids fluttered, but did not open. Her chest rose in short, shallow breaths. Mom, wake up, please, wake up, he begged, his hands shaking so hard that he could barely dial 911 on his cracked phone. While the operator spoke in a calm voice he did not hear. All he could see was the woman who had worked double shifts and skipped meals so he could have soccer cleats and school books, lying on the cold floor and not answering him. For the first time in his life, the question of who his father was did not matter as much as one raw thought that filled his whole mind. I cannot lose her. The sirens came fast, red and blue lights flashing through the thin curtains of their tiny Cleveland apartment. A neighbor peeked out from across the hall, wearing a stained tank top and worried eyes, as the EMTs rushed in with a stretcher. Caleb tried to follow as they lifted Angela, but one of them, a tall woman with kind brown eyes, put a firm hand on his shoulder. You family? She asked. I'm her son, he said, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. Then you come with us, she said, and he climbed into the back of the ambulance, holding on to the metal rail with white knuckles as the city sped by in sharp lights and dark shapes. He had never felt so small or so very alone. In the harsh light of the ER at Cleveland Memorial, time turned strange. Nurses moved fast, voices called codes he did not understand, and forms appeared that people wanted him to sign even though his hand still shook. They told him the fall had triggered something that was already there. A small bleed in her brain from high blood pressure and too much stress. She was stable but needed tests, maybe surgery, maybe rest. They were not sure yet. Hours later, Caleb sat in the plastic chair by her bed, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor. Angela looked smaller under the thin white hospital blanket, a bandage on the back of her head, a line of clear fluid running into her arm. Her eyes were closed, but every now and then her lips moved like she was trying to speak. Caleb leaned close each time, hoping, but no real words came. A doctor in blue scrubs, with soft gray hair and tired eyes, stopped by and spoke to him in a quiet voice. "Your mom's been under a lot of pressure," he said. "Has she been taking her blood pressure medicine?" "I don't know," Caleb admitted, shame burning his face. "She never tells me anything. She just handles it." The doctor sighed. "She can't keep carrying everything alone," he said. "She needs help. Do you have any other family we can call?" Caleb shook his head. "No, it's just us." He thought of how many times he had pushed her about the past, about his father, about why they always had to move when the rent went up. He had been so angry at their life, at the second-hand clothes and the cheap cereal and the way his mom's hands stayed red and cracked from dish soap and winter air. But right now, none of that mattered. He would have lived in a box under a bridge if it meant she would open her eyes and laugh at him for worrying too much. "Go home for a few hours, kid," the doctor said gently. "Get a shower, something to eat. We'll call if anything changes. Your mom would not want you to fall apart here." Caleb did not want to leave, but the cold ache in his back and the sticky feeling of sweat on his skin told him he had not slept or eaten in too long. Reluctantly, he nodded. Before he left, he whispered into Angela's ear, "Don't you dare leave me, okay? You still owe me the truth." The walk back to their apartment felt longer than ever. Cleveland's winter wind cut through his thin jacket, and he shoved his hands into his pockets, his breath a pale ghost in the dark. The city sounds that usually felt normal now seemed far away, like he was watching a movie of someone else's life. By the time he climbed the worn stairs to the third floor and unlocked their door, his legs felt heavy. Inside, the small place still held all the signs of the life they had just lived a few hours ago. The pot of rice on the stove, now cold and stuck to the sides. The homework sheets on the table. The fallen salt shaker. The faint dent in the floor where his mom's head had hit. Caleb swallowed hard and forced himself not to look too long at that spot. He headed to his room and found the spare blanket she had bought at Goodwill, the one that still smelled a little like her laundry soap. He sank onto his bed, holding it to his face, and that was when he saw it. It was a shoebox on the top shelf of his closet, pushed so far back that it almost touched the wall. He had never noticed it before, and that alone was strange, because he was not the kind of guy who left things alone. He had searched this room 100 times, bored and curious, digging for old Christmas gifts he might have missed, or hidden snacks. Yet now, in the half-dark, it was just there, like it had been waiting for him. Caleb stood slowly, his heart beating faster for no good reason. "It's just a box," he muttered to himself, trying to sound brave, but his voice shook a little. He dragged a chair under the shelf, climbed up, and pulled down the faded cardboard. It was heavier than he expected. On the lid, in his mother's sharp, neat handwriting, was one short line, "For Caleb, when he is ready." His breath caught in his throat. All his life, she had been the one saying that line. "When he is ready, when I am ready. Someday, not now." He set the box on his bed, sat down in front of it, and stared like it might bite him. Part of him wanted to shove it back into the closet, pretend he had never seen it. The other part, the louder part, the one that woke up at night, asking questions he could not answer, reached for the lid. Under the cardboard flap lay a stack of things. Old papers, an envelope with a broken seal, a tiny blue knitted hat, a flash drive taped to an index card, a folded photograph. His hand shook as he picked up the photo first. It showed a young woman on a sunny day, holding a newborn baby. The woman had Angela's eyes and nose, but she looked softer, almost glowing, with smooth skin and no gray in her hair. Behind her, towering over them both, was a man in a sharp suit, his arm around her shoulders. He had light skin, pale gray eyes, and that kind of smile you saw in magazines. The kind that said he was used to getting what he wanted. Caleb looked closer and saw something else that made his stomach twist. Over the man's shoulder, half hidden by the edge of the frame, was a house so big it did not look real. Tall white pillars, wide stone steps, 3 stories of glass windows that reflected the blue sky. It was nothing like their narrow apartment building with the broken buzzer and peeling paint on the bottom of the photo. In the same sharp handwriting as on the box were 5 words. Caleb, 3 days old, California, California. He had never been to California. Angie, as some people called her at work, had always said he was born in a small clinic in Ohio. They had never left the state because, in her words, gas is not free, and dreams do not pay rent. Now here he was, staring at proof that his life had started 3 time zones away from everything he knew. Caleb dug deeper into the box. The envelope on top was thick and yellowed, with a fancy gold stamp on the front and a return address in San Francisco. The name printed in bold letters made him blink. Hale Industries Legal Department. He might not know a lot about law firms, but he knew that name. Everybody did. Hale was the tech giant that made half the apps on his phone and owned 3 skyscrapers downtown. Their founder, Nicholas Hale, was on the news every other week, talking about his billions, his charity work, his trips on private jets. His gut clenched, hand shaking harder now. He slid out the papers. The first one was a letter, typed in cold. Ms. Angela Flores, it began. This letter serves as formal notice of Mr. Nicholas Hale's intent regarding the custody and support of the child born on March 12th. Caleb's eyes jumped over the legal terms as his brain stumbled, trying to catch up. Custody, support, child. March 12th, that was his birthday. He grabbed the birth certificate next. Name, Caleb Flores. Place of birth, San Francisco General Hospital. Mother, Angela Flores. Father, Nicholas Hale. The room tilted. The cheap lamp by his bed, the posters on his wall, the cracked ceiling. It all spun as his brain screamed that this did not make sense. His father could not be Nicholas Hale, the man on billboards and magazine covers. The one who had probably never even seen the inside of a bus. People like that did not have kids living in tiny Cleveland apartments with leaky faucets. People like that did not leave their children wondering if they were a mistake. He grabbed the blue knitted hat and held it tight. The yarn scratched his palm, real and solid, like it was trying to anchor him to the bed so he would not float away. No way, he whispered. No freaking way. The flash drive stared up at him like a small, silent eye. Taped to the card under it were 5 more words. Watch this when I'm gone. A hot, sharp anger shot through him. Gone. Was that what she had been planning for? To leave this box like some last chapter he could not read until she was not here to answer any of his questions. He looked at the hospital band, still on his wrist from signing in earlier, then back at the drive. She was lying in a bed right now, hooked up to machines because she had pushed herself past her limit. And still, even with all this, she had not told him the truth. His old laptop whirred to life when he plugged in the drive. The screen flickered, and then a video file appeared with one simple name, for Caleb. He clicked dot. The image that filled the screen stole his breath. It was his mother, but younger, maybe only a few years older than he was now. Her hair was longer, her cheeks rounder, her eyes bright. Behind her, he could see a hint of that big white house he had seen in the photo. She sat on a wooden bench under a tree, a baby's cry faint in the background. "Hi, baby," she said, looking into the camera with a shaky smile. "Well, I guess if you're watching this, it means I was too afraid to tell you myself." Her voice trembled, and she pressed her lips together, gathering courage. "So I'm going to try now, while I still can?" Caleb leaned closer. Every part of him locked on her like she was speaking from the next room instead of from the past. "My name is Angela Flores," she said, though he already knew that. "And when I was 19, I left my little town in New Mexico and came to California to find work. I ended up cleaning houses, rich ones, the kind I had only seen on TV. That is how I met your father. She said the word father, like it was fragile. He was not like the others, she went on. He talked to me, asked about my family, brought me coffee when he saw I was tired. I should have known better, but I was young, and he was kind, and I was so lonely. She laughed, but it was a sad sound. We thought we were in love. Maybe in some way, we were. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. When I found out I was pregnant with you, he said he was happy. He held me and told me he would take care of us. But then his lawyers came, his board, his parents, big people in big suits, talking about image and scandal and what is best for the company. Her mouth tightened. They did not care about you. They cared about his name, his money, his face in the news. They wanted me to sign papers, she said, pulling a folded sheet into the frame of the video. They wanted me to give you up. Let them raise you somewhere far away so no one would ever know. You will be taken care of, they said. You will lack nothing. But when they said that, they were looking at him, not at me, not at you. One tear slid down the younger Angela's cheek. Your father. She paused, took a shaky breath. Nicholas. He was weak. I do not say that to make you hate him, baby. I think he was scared. He told me it was just for a while, that once things settled he would bring us back. But I could see the way he avoided my eyes when his parents were in the room. I could see how his hands shook when he signed the papers they put in front of him. She looked into the camera, straight at Caleb, straight at the boy now clenching his fists on a cheap bed in Cleveland. I could not do it. I could not let them take you and turn you into some secret they only visited on holidays. So one night, when you were 3 days old, I left. I took you, the little hat the nurse had put on your head, and what little cash I had. A driver who was kind gave us a ride out of town. We rode buses for 3 days until we were far enough away that no one would find us. That is how we ended up in Ohio. She smiled, and this time it was real. Do you remember that tiny basement place with the low ceiling and the mice? She asked the future him on the screen. You used to chase those poor things with a toy car. Her face softened with the memory. I changed our last name. I lied on forms. I kept my head down. Every time a strange car slowed near our place, my heart jumped. I was so sure they would come take you. That is why I never told you the truth. Part of it was fear that they would find you if you knew. Part of it was fear that you would hate me for stealing you away from all that money. Part of it was, she looked down at her hands, turned them palm up. Part of it was pride. I wanted to prove that I could raise you on my own, that love and hard work could give you enough even if we did not have millions. She looked up, eyes shining. I know you have been angry, Caleb. I hear it in your voice every time you ask about him. You think I kept you from something. Maybe I did. I kept you from fancy schools and trips, and a dad who could buy you anything. But I also kept you from becoming a trophy in someone's glass case. Her voice broke. I kept you. That is the choice I made. She reached toward the camera like she was trying to touch his face. One day, maybe when you turn 18, I will sit you down and tell you all of this myself, and we will decide together what to do. If you want to find him, if you want his name, if you want his money, I will not stop you. But I need you to know that every hard day, every cheap meal, every time I said no to something you wanted, I did it because I chose you over an easy life. The video shook as she picked up the camera, giving one last close-up of her young, hopeful face. I love you more than the truth scares me, she whispered. But you deserved that truth. So here it is. The screen went dark. Caleb sat there, the glow of the laptop painting his face in cold light. Tears he had not even felt coming now, sliding down his cheeks and dripping onto his hands. He was not sure who he was crying for more, the young girl on the screen who had been brave and terrified at the same time, the man in the suit who had let other people choose for him. Or the boy who had spent his whole life thinking he had been left because he was not enough? His phone buzzed on the bed, making him jump. For a second, he thought some shadowy lawyer had somehow felt the secret break loose and was calling to drag him away. When he grabbed it, he saw the hospital's number. His heart slammed against his ribs as he swiped to answer. "Hello, is this Caleb Flores?" the nurse asked. "Yeah," he said, wiping his face with his sleeve. "Your mom is awake," she said. "She's asking for you." By the time he reached the hospital again, sprinting the last block, his lungs burned, but he did not slow down. He burst into Angela's room, almost crashing into a nurse with a tray. His mother turned her head toward him, her eyes clearer now, but ringed with bruised shadows. "There you are," she whispered, her voice thin but warm. He stopped at the foot of the bed, not sure how to start. The weight of the box, the papers, the video, all pressed down on his chest. For a moment, all he wanted was to forget it, and crawl into the chair, and lay his head on the bed, and pretend they were just them again. The two-person team against the world. But the truth was out now, and there was no way back. "I found it," he said finally. The box. The video. Angela closed her eyes, and for a second he thought she might pass out again. "I hoped," she murmured, "that I would tell you myself before you saw that. I guess life had other plans." "Why didn't you show me?" he asked, his voice breaking on the last word. "Why did you let me feel like some leftover piece that nobody wanted?" Her hand trembled as she reached for him. He hesitated only a second before stepping closer, letting her fingers curl around his. Her grip was weak, but still familiar. "I never wanted you to feel that way," she said. "I thought if I loved you hard enough, you would never question it, that you would not need to know why other people had walked away." "But you said he loved you," Caleb said. "You said he was happy about me." She nodded slowly. "He did love us," she said, "in his way. But love is not just words. It is what you do when it costs you something." When it came time to pay that cost, he stepped back. "I could not risk you on the chance that one day he might step forward again." Caleb thought of the man in the photo, the one with the easy smile, and the rich house, and the weak eyes when the lawyers walked in. He felt anger spike in him, hot and wild. But there was also a strange tug of something else, something like curiosity, or a tiny, stubborn hope. "Does he know where we are?" he asked. "I made sure he did not," Angela said. "For years, I sent no word. I watched the news to make sure he did not put your face on missing posters. He did not." There was no joy in the last words, only tired sadness. "But a few years ago, I got another letter from his lawyers. I hid that too." She swallowed with effort. "He has been looking for you, Caleb, quietly. He wants to see you before, double quotes." She trailed off, her eyes distant. "Before what?" "Before he dies," she said. "He is sick, some kind of fast cancer. They say he does not have long." The room seemed to shrink around them. Caleb felt like someone had opened a door in his chest and let in a cold wind. "So now he cares?" he asked, his voice sharp again. "Now that the party's over, he wants his long-lost son so he can feel better before he goes." "I do not know his heart," Angela said softly. "I only know mine. I wanted to keep you safe from his world. But I also do not want you to spend your whole life wondering about a man you never met. If you choose to see him, you might leave with more anger than you walked in with, or you might leave with answers. That is your choice, Caleb. Not mine, not his, yours." He sank into the chair, running his free hand through his hair. Outside the window, the gray afternoon light made the city look washed out. He thought of all the nights he had gone to sleep, wishing for a father who would show up at his soccer games, who would yell from the stands when he scored, who would teach him to shave and drive and talk to girls. He thought of how it would feel to face the man who could have been that, and chose not to. "Would you go with me?" he asked quietly. Angela's eyes filled with tears. "If they let me on the plane, I will sit beside you the whole way," she said. And if they do not, I will wait right here and pray for you until you come back. He looked at their joined hands, brown on brown, calloused fingers wrapped around youth. He realized with a sudden, fierce clarity that no piece of paper could ever change the truth of what those hands had done for him. But there was another truth now too, one that he could not ignore. Somewhere in California, a man with his same birthday marked on a file was counting down his last days and waiting to see if the boy he had lost would walk through his door. "I'll go," Caleb said at last. The words heavy, but sure. Not for him. For me. 2 weeks later, the plane began its slow descent over San Francisco. Caleb pressed his forehead to the tiny window and stared at the sprawl of the city. The bay like a piece of broken mirror, catching the light. Angela was not beside him. The doctor had said the trip was too much for her so soon after her fall. Instead, she had packed his small suitcase 3 times, kissing his cheek and whispering, "Call me when you land," like he was flying to the moon instead of across the country. The car that met him at the airport was black and sleek, the inside smelling like new leather and something floral. The driver held a sign with his name on it, his full name, both last names printed, side by side, Caleb Flores Hale. Seeing it made his stomach tighten. He almost wanted to rip the sign in half, but instead, he nodded and slid into the back seat as they drove through streets that looked like movie sets, past coffee shops where people with laptops sat by big windows and dogs wore sweaters. Caleb felt more and more like someone had dropped him into the wrong game. When the car turned up a long, curving drive, lined with tall trees, and stopped in front of a house even bigger than the one in the old photo, his throat went dry. The front doors were taller than his entire apartment had been. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like polished wood. Paintings worth more than their yearly rent hung on the walls. A woman in a gray suit greeted him with a polite smile. "Mr. Hale," she said. "That's not my name," he answered without thinking. Then he added, "It's Caleb. Just Caleb is fine." Her smile slipped just a little, but she nodded. "He's in the back garden," she said. He wanted to see the bay. The garden was a place out of a dream, all smooth paths and neat hedges and bursts of flowers that did not know what winter was. By the low stone wall at the edge, in a padded chair with a blanket over his legs, sat a man who was both stranger and familiar. His hair, once dark, was now silver at the temples. He was thinner than in the photo, the suit hanging a little loose on his frame, but his eyes, those pale gray eyes, were the same. Caleb knew them because he saw them every morning in his own mirror. When Nicholas Hale turned and saw him, the world on his face changed. All the smooth, practiced charm Caleb had seen on TV crumbled, and something raw and aching took its place. "Caleb," he whispered, like the name hurt and healed in the same breath. Caleb stopped a few feet away, his hands shoved deep into his pockets so Nicholas would not see how they shook. "So I heard you wanted to see me," he said, the words sounding colder than he felt. "I have wanted that for 17 years, Nicholas said. His voice was rough, like he had been talking to ghosts for a long time. "I just did not deserve it." A nurse quietly backed away, leaving them in a bubble of strange silence broken only by the soft sound of waves below the wall. "You signed the papers," Caleb said. "You let them try to take me." Nicholas flinched like he had been slapped. "I did," he answered. "I was a coward. I told myself it was for the best, that you would have a better life away from the media, away from the chaos. But that was a lie I wrapped around the truth so I could sleep at night. The truth is, I was scared. Scared of losing my company, scared of my parents, scared of being broken." He looked up, meeting Caleb's eyes. "Your mother was the only one who was not scared of the right thing. She was scared of losing you. She worked herself sick so I could have used cleats," Caleb said. "I asked her once why I couldn't get the brand new ones everyone else had. She told me love mattered more than labels. I thought she was just saying that because we were poor." "She was saying it because it was true," Nicholas said. His hand gripped the arm of his chair, the knuckles white. I have bought everything a person can buy. Houses, cars, companies. None of it fills the empty seat at your table when you know your child is not there. His voice caught. I saw her on a security video once, you know. Before she left, holding you, standing in the nursery, singing to you when she thought no one was watching. I could have stopped her then, called the guard, stood in her way. He blinked hard, eyes shining. I watched her walk out with you instead. Caleb stared. The idea that this man, the giant on TV, had once stood in some dark room watching his mother on a screen and done nothing felt like someone had twisted his heart. Why? He asked in a rough whisper. Because for the first time in my life, I cared more about a person than about my own fear, Nicholas said. I knew that if I stopped her, they would win. They would take you, and she would be left with empty arms and no power. I thought I would find a way to bring you both back later, quietly. But every year that passed, it got harder, and every headline, every success, felt cheaper because of what I had lost. So you just sent lawyers after us, years later? Caleb asked, almost spitting the word. He shook his head. I did not send them to drag you here, he said. I sent them to ask, to tell your mother I was sick. That time was running out, that I wanted to see you, even if it was just once, from across a room. She never answered. I do not blame her. Caleb thought of the box again, of Angela's tired face as she had said, it is your choice. He looked back at Nicholas, really looked, and saw a man whose skin hung looser, not just from age, but from regret, whose world of polished wood and smooth gardens had not kept him from rotting a little inside. You can't fix 17 years in one afternoon, Caleb said. I know, Nicholas answered. If all you ever wanted was to tell me to my face that you hate me, I would sit here and take every word. I earned that. But if there is anything you want answers, my side. Even just a medical history so you know what you're facing down the line, will give you all of it. You do not owe me a thing, Caleb. I am the one who owes you. The wind off the bay was cool, lifting the edge of the blanket on Nicholas's knees, tossing Caleb's hair into his eyes. In that breeze, he heard echoes his mom's soft hum when she washed dishes, the click of her shoes as she left for early shifts, the tearful laugh in her video when she called him baby. He also heard something new, a quiet, shaking please that Nicholas did not quite dare to say out loud. Do you remember the first time you held me? Caleb asked, surprising even himself. Nicholas's lips parted. Yes, he said at once, like he had been waiting years for someone to ask him that. You were so small. You stared at me like you already knew I was going to mess it up, but you were willing to give me a chance anyway. A sad smile tugged at his mouth. You wrapped your whole hand around one of my fingers, and I thought, nothing I own is really mine anymore. It all belongs to him. Caleb swallowed past the lump in his throat. Then why didn't you act like it? He asked. But there was less heat in the question now, more hurt. Because I was still a boy in a man's suit, Nicholas said. And your mother was the only real grown-up in the room. They talked until the light over the bay turned gold and then soft gray. They spoke of small things, favorite foods, hobbies, stupid school stories and heavy things, like what kind of cancer ate at Nicholas's body, like the night Angela left and how long he had looked for them before giving up and trying to drown his guilt in work. Each new truth hurt in its own way, but it also fit into place like a puzzle piece, making a picture of a life that was not simple or clean but was at least real. When the nurse finally came to wheel Nicholas back inside, he reached into the pocket of his robe and pulled out a thick envelope. I had the lawyers draw this up, he said. It gives you half of everything when I go. He tried to hand it over, but Caleb did not take it. I don't even know if I want your name yet, Caleb said quietly. I'm not sure I want your money. Nicholas's hand dropped, the envelope resting in his lap. Then leave it, he said. Let it sit in an office somewhere and collect dust. Take it, burn it, give it all away. I am not asking you to trade your anger for cash, Caleb. I am asking you for something much harder. His eyes were wet again. I am asking you to forgive me. Silence hung between them, heavy as the sky before a storm. Caleb thought of his mom's tired smile when she had said she did not want him to hate his father. He thought of the way she still called him your father even after everything. Not that man. She, who had every right to carry bitterness like a shield, had chosen not to hand that weight to him. I don't know if I can do that today, Caleb said. Maybe not even next week, but I don't want to spend my life hating you. I have seen what hate does to people in our neighborhood. It makes them small and hard and tired. I don't want to be like that. He took a deep breath. So I'll try. I'll keep talking to you until I figure out who you are to me. Not a headline, not a bank account. Just a man who made some terrible choices and is trying not to die with them still rotting inside. A shaky smile broke across Nicholas's face, more real than any Caleb had seen in magazine photos. That is more than I deserve, he said. Thank you. That night, back in the small guest room that was still bigger than his entire apartment, Caleb called his mother. Her voice, tired but steady, wrapped around him through the phone like the old blanket from his bed. He told her about the garden, about how thin Nicholas looked, about the way their eyes matched and how that felt both wrong and right. He told her, in a voice that shook, that he did not hate her for leaving that house all those years ago. He loved her more for it. I was so afraid you would choose him over me, Angela admitted. He blinked hard at the ceiling. You are the one who chose me when it counted, he said. No one can ever take that away. When he flew back to Ohio a few days later, the city looked smaller than before, but in a good way, like a place he finally understood. He walked into their apartment, dropped his bag, and went straight to his mother, who was sitting at the table with bills spread out in front of her. She stood to hug him, and he held on longer than he ever had, feeling her ribs, her heartbeat, the warm, solid proof that love had kept him alive long before he knew any of the rest. On the fridge, he taped a photo the nurse had taken in the garden, him and Nicholas side by side, both squinting a little against the sun, both looking unsure but still there. Next to it, he taped an old picture of baby Caleb on Angela's shoulder, her face sweaty and joyful as she kissed his tiny head. Two different truths, both his years later. When people asked about his story, the rich dad, the poor mom, the hidden past, the last-minute letters, he always smiled a little and chose his words with care. He talked about a young girl who ran across the country with nothing but a baby and a brave heart, about a weak man who learned too late that love is not real until it costs you something, and about a boy who thought he was unwanted until the truth showed him how hard people had fought over who got to keep him. He did not pretend it was simple, or neat, or fair, but he knew this, as clearly as he knew his own name. The secret his mother had hidden for 17 years had changed his life. Yet it was her love, and his choice, to face the truth with an open heart that had saved it. Because in the end, the only story that really matters is the one where we choose love, even when fear and pain tell us to run.